Hello, everybody. You're watching Let's Talk About Prepping. I'm Tyler, your host, and today we're doing a little bit of a late night live stream. Been a little bit since we've had a live stream, so I felt like hopping on here and talking to you guys, seeing how it's been, and getting back in the habit of it. So, today I want to talk a little bit about the current state of affairs in the world. I think it's pretty fair to say that most of us have probably changed how we see prepping, how we see the current baseline in the world, the new norm, if you will, and probably worth talking again and having a little bit of a chat about how it's changed, how we look at prepping. I think unless you've got your head in the sand, you probably have a different perspective on why you're prepping. Hey, Josh, how you doing? Um, Definitely been a good few months to reassess the gaps in our preps and where we really want to target, where we're going with our preparedness and what we're concerned about. Hey Gil, how you doing today? Backwoods, nice seeing you. It's been a minute. Good seeing some of you guys in here again. It's been a little while. So we're just having a little bit of a chat about how prepping has changed, how prepping has changed for us, for the world at large. I think if you're like me, you've probably gotten a little jealous when you're watching your political talk shows and they're talking about preparedness like it's something some of us haven't been doing the entire time. Just cleaning the AR. Very nice. Um, I know a lot of us in this community were talking about the new norm long before that term became popular. Um, I remember mentioning it long before I ever saw it on the mainstream news. But a lot of us were warning each other. We're going to be hearing a lot about the new norm. Being laid off, I bet, man. Yep. I've been unemployed for some very large chunks of time in the past, and that's definitely gives you a whole new outlook on life and finances. So I definitely know the feeling. Um, Now, when I say the new norm in this circumstance, I'm not necessarily referring to what we were talking about back then when it comes to COVID and stuff, because we're deep in that. It's been a very long 15 days of flattening the curve. Working on one of your novels. Oh, well, sorry to distract you from writing. I know how it feels to get stumbled up. I've written in the past, and writer's block is a very serious challenge. So I always feel bad when I interrupt somebody who's successfully getting some writing done. But the new norm that I'm thinking about tonight is the new norm, just the world over. I think it's pretty fair to say, as much as it may sadden some of us, the world that we were used to, obviously, ever since the 90s is gone. That ended with 9/11. I think that there's a lot of things that have just never gone back. We lost the 90s, if you will. When I talk about that, I always think of the Matrix. Uh, I think it's when one of the agents is describing why they always set the Matrix during the 90s. The computers think that was when humans were at their most content, their most zombie-esque. You plop humans in the 90s in America, and they're content with it. Well, that's been gone for a long time, and even the 2000s have been gone for a while. I guess you could maybe summarize the way that the world's changed since the 2000s with the rise of prominence of social media. The world is not the way that it was before cancel culture and the instantaneous news cycle, the politicization of everything. And then you have the late 20 teens and 2020, and especially this year, the baseline has again changed. I don't like being alarmist or thinking that current trends are going to be the new norm, because we do that a lot in the prepping community. And I've often tried to be one of the people who steps back and goes, I don't think that we're going to have a civil war over this, or I don't think that this is going to be the cause of the big one, if you will. Hello, Anna. How you doing? Of course, Anna would be thinking of Reba songs. So I'm curious what everybody thinks the new baseline is. I would really like to think that social unrest is not it. I would like to think that rioting and things like that can go away just as quickly as they appear. My great fear in that regard is that we have enough mentally unwell people on all sides that are beginning to be radicalized or to lose their baseline of reality. And my greatest fear is that we've crossed some threshold where Frankenstein's monster is on a rampage and can't be put back in the box. But I'm, I always am hoping that better angels will prevail whenever it comes to that kind of thing. But on top of that, we have all of the political concerns going on. We have the election year. We have the SCOTUS going on. We have all of that uncertainty. And then we have not only COVID, but the standing supply chain concerns. I don't think that the supply chain is fully recovered from all of this kerfuffle. And one of my greatest concerns coming into the winter season is that I don't think we have the buffer to survive hits. Whenever it came to New York and the entire northeastern area being snowed in for an entire winter, that didn't affect the West Coast or other places nearly as much as I think it would this year. I think if the shelves go dry in one part of the country, that ripples out to everywhere else in a much more dramatic fashion than it did in the past. Yeah, and there's some things that just have not, and I will claim some victory points, because months ago I said that we were going to see a wave of shortages of things that come from China and overseas, electronics and things like that, because the food was going to be the immediate one because of a rapid increase in demand, but the actual decrease in supply was going to come whenever all of the warehouses ran out of Chinese and overseas electronics and things like that. And lately I've been noticing a lot of things that, chargers or things like that, which have been running into shortages because there's just not enough supply coming from overseas, or there wasn't in the previous period where there was a hiccup. So that's something that I think we're just going to continue dealing with. There's a lot of products that are backlogged, and I mean, all the way up to guns. I don't think that we're going to see any immediate return to normal supply when it comes to guns, ammo, even foodstuffs. When I've gone to the gun store or places where you buy emergency preparedness type stuff, it's pretty much as busy as it is during Black Friday in normal parts of the store. And that's around here, where generally I've noticed there's a lot more preppers around here. There's a lot more people who don't need to go buy guns. And so for a long time, after everywhere else had ammo and gun shortages, we even still do have small amounts of many types of ammunition and plenty of guns in all of the gun stores. So there's definitely not nearly as much demand around here as there is in plenty of other places. But even then, there is a very clear consciousness among the normies that they need to be preparing. And that's echoed in a lot of very mainstream news sources and talk shows that I watch. And whenever they bring that kind of thing up, whenever people are just regular people are talking about prepping, whenever I start handing out my YouTube channel card to local people because they bring up prepping, that, oh yeah, I've been buying some extra food for this winter because of the election and stuff. usually I have to organically spawn that kind of conversation. They're doing it for me. They're actually bringing up the subject of prepping without any input from myself because, uh, you know, I've mentioned before, most of you probably know, I work in a public service facing job and I deal with up to or over 200 people in a day. The number of people who I'll send you a card, Anna. But you know, obviously, just through COVID, the number of people who bring up their feelings one way or the other about the masks, the COVID lockdowns, everything, I hear it from them. When it comes to the election or the craziness going on, or again, the need to prep, I do hear it from people. And it is very telling, especially compared to events of the past, how many people are mindful of this. I've had this conversation with a couple of other people behind the scenes. There's a definite difference between what's going on now and situations in the past where people have been correct to say that this is not the event. As always, I'm hesitant to make prophecies to claim what's going to happen, but one of the main things that I've wanted to talk about whenever I get back into the habit of making videos as much as I'd like to be is, oh yeah, hit that thumbs button. I definitely believe that aside from any single event, because I don't think that there necessarily are any single particular events that one can say with a certainty, aside from more riots, I think that we can pretty much bet on there being more riots in this country in the next year. I think that's a pretty safe one. But that's not necessarily something that each of us needs to be concerned about. But the baseline of concern and inversely, you know, the baseline of guaranteed safety and security and peace and tranquility in the country, those have changed dramatically. And they change dramatically every day. Just the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, that alone registered as a decent amount of the threat level increasing for me. Completely aside and before any of the political ramifications registered to me, my first reaction was this doesn't make anything better when it comes to how likely the likelihood of chaos, the likelihood of not good things happening. And that's just sort of the story of this year. That's why I call it the year of there's a Jumanji board being left open somewhere, because things just keep happening and they keep increasing the likelihood of chaotic things happening. They increase the likelihood of people who are on the verge of snapping and going crazy because the chaos of the world, they just can't handle it anymore. Or the narratives that they're exposing themselves to reinforce the crazy part of them and make them think that the alternate reality that they exist in is the real reality. There are a lot of crazy people out there who are existing just on the fringe of what is not clearly unhinged to the rest of society. And when you have a lot of people stoking flames and basically inciting crazy stuff, even though they think it's just rhetoric, and this is on both sides, you get those few crazy people who are right on the edge of losing touch with what is acceptable, what is reasonable, and going over the edge. I mean, that is just a random person going crazy. That is a threat to any innocent person that encounters them, completely aside from riots or anything else, food shortages. There are just so many stresses that are causing crazy people to snap. And there are a lot of people trying to sort of stoke that flame lately. You have, again, all the shortages, all of the uncertainties, you know, aside from the supply chain. I feel like there's a higher likelihood for instance, the power grid to be more susceptible. If there's a higher number of people out sick because of COVID or because of COVID concerns, that's less people there on the job or available to fill gaps whenever power grids go down or things threaten the power grid. I just think that we are, perched. We are looking at a more risky winter than we've had for a while. I think that a lot of the things that are happening this year are just going to lend themselves to causing more instability and chaos. And again, I do not like being alarmist. I don't like being the kind of person who stokes fear, but I also feel that prepper channels have some degree of not necessarily responsibility. I do feel like that's taking myself too seriously, but in so much as we have the ability to foster conversation about where people think things are, I feel like the alarm level for the general level of security and tranquility in the United States and perhaps abroad has changed enough that the conversation should be had among people who care to have it. It's the world is not the safe seeming place that it was a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Take your pick. The baseline has changed. So that's part of my message is, I'm putting out the yellow alert level, if you will, that we're not where we thought we were a year ago. Things definitely seem more likely to be chaotic. I don't think that we have as much of a safety net as we did or as we thought we did. Take your pick. But I think that if you gauge just off of what the normal sheeple are feeling, if they're feeling a sudden alarm or urge to prepare, I think that that's a pretty good reason for people who consider themselves to be actively concerned about that kind of thing to be upping their own offset, their own level of preparedness. Because if the sheep are waking up, then the sheepdogs should be running around like crazy. And in so much as that is a cliche or corny way to think of preparedness-minded people, I think that it's accurate in so much as some people need to be prepared for it. Some people need to be forward thinking. And I think that we would be very remiss and lacking in our duties if we just go, oh, finally, everybody else is thinking about it. Now I can just continue on my merry way and I'm doing enough. If all you need to do is start thinking of yourself as maybe being more like the kind of people that we read in the history books, that might do you well, because there's every chance that in the future people will compare us to other situations in history and go, this was that same thing. And if they had learned lessons from those people, not only might they have avoided it, but in that situation, they might have recognized what was going on. And I definitely feel like there are multiple lessons from history that we are seeing ourselves in the early stages of. And most of them, well, none of them are good because we had a good thing going on. And hopefully we can get it back to that. But there is a lot of sand in the gears of a machine that should be going pretty well. And hopefully, like I said, we can get things back on track. But between all of the random concerns that we have, it's looking like a rather concerning next year. So I'm going to get into what some of you guys are saying, because part of what I want to do here is see what everybody else is feeling. I know it's a little late at night, so we don't have nearly as much audience as we would like to have, but we got a good one. Backwoods agrees. Riots seem likely. Yeah, I do agree. One of a lot of people's main concerns is that there are a lot of new gun owners and not nearly enough training could possibly be going around to suit them all. I'm strongly of the opinion that anybody has the right to own a gun. It is concerning to think of untrained people owning them, but I'm not going to stop them. But I'll probably be talking about gun safety, if only because I'm going to be producing them to share with family and friends, because I've got family and friends that are arming up just as much as everybody else. So, hey, Uncle Al, how are you doing? Thanks for dropping in. But yeah, I carry every day, just like many of you do. And whenever you step back and realize the difference between someone who carries every day and someone who is just getting a gun, there is a vast wealth of experience and knowledge that doesn't exist there that you take for granted. You get very comfortable with the thing, or at least with your knowledge of the thing. You don't necessarily get comfortable with it. So I don't want to hear, don't jump on my back about it. But you realize that you have ingrained muscle memory and protocol that you then have to unpack and give to somebody else, or that they just never get if no one does that for them. So yeah, it's very concerning to think of how many new people not only have guns, because under normal circumstances that would just be a wonderful thing, but have those guns because they're in an extremely high stress frame of mind. And we all know that you never do things right whenever you're reacting out of fear and you're staying in that high stress frame of mind. So if you are experienced with guns, it's your responsibility to try to pass that on to people, because only people who really know what they're doing can really make sure that people who are new to the thing get those good habits and build those bad habits in. So, if you have somebody who's trying to get into guns, you definitely, as always, want to be proactive and supportive about it, because any good American should want there to be more and more Americans who are not only well armed, but well trained. But yeah, that's just as a situational concern. Yeah, if bad shootings and riots are never a good thing, and nobody needs that. It's only going to make the situation worse. So that is definitely a concern. Yep, having a little bit of plywood to board up would be nice. Ideally, you wouldn't. Nobody wants to be in a riot or having people on the street outside, but yeah, it's definitely a good idea to have the ability to make your house a little harder than it is. That's something I want to be talking about. Is just some base preparations, some changes to our preps that we might make. And one of those is fire concerns. It seems to be the year of Molotov cocktails. Now, I grew up a nice paranoid prepper, and that's not something that you do. I mean, that, to me, in my mind, Molotov cocktail is just, it crosses right into the terrorist line. And ever since 9/11, it just seemed to me that anybody who had that kind of stuff is going to be investigated for terrorist threats or being a terrorist threat. That's just not something that normal people do. But it really just seems to be the year of that. So, it might be a good idea to know how you would put out your house when it gets caught on fire. But plywood on the front through the windows, so that's not inside your house. Fire suppressing abilities. This is why I like my buckets full of dirt for the bucket garden, because they can double not only as ballistic protection, but dirt makes a very good fire protection. Backwoods is talking about one in the chamber. I was just talking to my sisters about carrying one in the chamber on a gun that you carry, and how it is it's a debate that exists at all levels of the gun owner, the level, from beginner to advanced. That debate rages, and it's something that people change back and forth on throughout their life. Now, I carry a revolver, so clearly I'm a one in the chamber at all times kind of guy. In fact, I'm a all of the chambers loaded kind of guy. But even when I'm carrying a 1911 or something like that, I believe one in the chamber. I didn't actually finish your comment, so yep, about what I agree with Backwoods' opinion there. Modern guns are not going to go off with one in the chamber, and if you're, hopefully, if you're in a situation where you need to shoot someone, you have the time to rack the gun, but I'm not going to bet on that. I like to know that it's as close to being ready to go as I can reasonably have it be, and then carrying it and using it in such a safe fashion that it's not going to negligently discharge, because there is no accidental discharge, just negligent ones. Well, I am very disappointed in you, Anna. I dictate that you must gather the funds to get a fire extinguisher, or do what we were talking about and getting like a water tank up on top of your house. Or you suck at racking a gun and you carry a hammerless 38. That's no excuse, Anna. You need to get better at racking a gun and carry a hammered 357 Magnum. Oh, come on, Anna. Everybody's disappointed in everyone. It's 2020. I agree, Backwoods. Yeah. I definitely don't suggest, I don't try to push people to carry, and I don't think that people should carry until they really, take to heart what that means. It's not something to take lightly. You need to reassess almost everything that you do and how you carry yourself, how you react to everything, because you carry a gun. Because it's a huge responsibility. You're not allowed to get into a fight. You're not allowed to talk crap to people. You're not allowed to do a lot of things that you shouldn't do anyways, but you might get away with without drastic consequences. And you need to fully understand all the ramifications of using it and everything. So you should not carry a gun until you really need it or fully understand the gravity of it. So Backwoods is very right there. But once you do have that down, you have no reason to worry about the gun itself. You will be doing what you need to do. So there's no need to worry about not having one in the chamber. As of right now, Backwoods, COVID is still on my list of threats. I'm still reading up through some of the earlier comments. My concern with COVID is that we actually get a serious wave 2 superbug threat, and I have no way of really speaking to that. And I'm not willing to consider that it's a serious threat, but I'm aware that it is a threat. And so I won't put that out of the realm of possibility. And I definitely believe that at least some people will try to behave as though the threat of that happening is so severe that we need to behave severely because of it. So I am concerned about either a mutated super killing strain of the COVID-19 virus, COVID-20, if you will, or a very severe lockdown reaction to that specter, if you will. So that is there. But as it stands, I've been exposed to at least 200 people almost every single day since this started, except for my days off, which haven't been as many days off as before. So I'm in it to win it at this point. Yeah, Uncle Al, I definitely do want to get full face respirators with at least chemical and viral protection, because not just bio concerns, but more riot concerns. I don't want to worry about OC and burning rubber whenever I'm trying to hopefully get through dodge quickly, because I try to stay away from dodge. Creative Redundancy, how you doing, buddy? I haven't seen you in a little while. Hope you're doing well up there in the frigid north. Okay, interesting. Yeah, we've been looking at some of the subcompacts there, Backwoods Law. We've been, yeah, like in the compact 1911 frame, like the Kimber Micro has. There's a few guns out there that have the Micro 1911, and that is just a good setup no matter what it's chambered in. I will say I haven't shot in 1911 in probably at least 10 years. And I've put on a little bit of weight, a little bit of bulk since then. So they're feeling a little better than they were back when I was a younger lad. That's part of the reason why I've always carried the 357, because it was just the perfect size for me and arguably a superior bullet to most other, well, not just arguably, definitively a better pistol caliber than many others. Yeah, I noticed that the Glock 42 is it's actually pretty good, but there's a lot of the sub compacts that are don't have enough weight to really rack easily. You're sort of fighting. The spring is the most powerful part of the entire thing. You can't really put any momentum behind any single part of the gun, really. I'll be honest, Backwoods, I'm not familiar with all of the G designations. Is that a 9? The G21? Okay. I was actually second guessing myself. I figured you would probably be a 45 ACP kind of guy. I've just always carried my snub nose 357, but I've been eyeballing the 1911 lately and thinking I might, but I would be more prone to open carrying, and I'm not sure I want to make the switch from concealed to open carry right at the moment. Right on. I think it's great. A lot of women sort of hesitate with the 45. They want to downsize a little bit, but I don't really think there's too much reason for it. It's just a matter of really getting behind the gun and knowing what you're doing. Smith & Wesson 28. Yep, I've got a little... it really bugs me that you can't show guns on live streams anymore. But yeah, I've always carried my stainless steel Taurus 357. And came with some manufacturer issues, but once I got those cleaned up by a gunsmith, it's been a great little gun. Oh. Yeah, I could, Gil. I'm actually just running through the YouTube webcam. So I don't have any window control options here. I need to get back in the habit of setting up for a third-party plugin stream app. We're going to be doing some group live streams here soon. I know that Reed over at Manifestation of Imagination and myself, at least, are going to be doing some team live stream here pretty soon. We've been in talks about it for a while, but life is busy. So part of me getting going here is making sure that I'm all sort of set up to be able to do that kind of thing. Yep, Reed is a great guy, and he's got a lot of great projects going on, a lot of great insight, and we just feel like a lot of the conversation is centered on this kind of thing: podcasting, live streaming, conversational stuff. There's obviously still all the value in videos, but a lot of people are getting into the podcasting thing, not just on the podcaster side, but people are starting to really get in the groove of ingesting and really enjoying podcasts. So it seems like a really good way to reach people and get them, sort of actually share ideas with them rather than just talking at people. Although, again, videos remain valuable in that they're succinct, they can be referenced. But backwoods laws on coffee, huh? But conversation is just more natural for a lot of people, and it just seems like a really good way to get people involved more with the ideas rather than feeling like they're more abstract, Yeah, and that's true, Anna. Definitely, it's been a little bit of a lockdown reaction, but yeah, it just seems like a good way to draw out conversation. It's sort of sometimes hard to sit here and monologue, that's why this kind of thing is even easier, because I could sit here and I could talk for 20 or 30 minutes just talking to the camera, imagining an audience, but it definitely really helps to have them, at least one other person or the audience to talk to. I'm just reading up a second here. Backwoods was just saying that his wife really likes the felt recoil on a heavier gun rather than the lighter bodied subcompacts, which is definitely true. The lighter the gun, the less there is for the recoil to move and the more it kicks back, but definitely a trade-off. So how about you guys? Question for the audience. What have you changed significantly in your preps or your baseline awareness in past months, whether it's COVID and what's coming from that, or social unrest, political uncertainty, things like that? Are you concerned about China? What's on your mind and what are you doing about it? Are you more alert lately? Are you changing your day-to-day protocols? What's different for you, and where are you going from here? What's your 1-year plan? Where do you think we're going to be a year from now? Are we going to be in the middle of a civil war? Will things have calmed back down because it's no longer an election year and we'll feel a little silly for being so alarmed? Or are we entering a new, depression era, not just economically, but an era of not goodness when it comes to pretty much everything? Where are you guys at? Where do you think we're going towards? Hello, Robert Moore. I don't know that I've noticed you in here. I'm sorry. How you doing? Let's just ask the easy questions, huh? Yeah, come on, Backwoods. Tell me the future here. Heaven's Essentials is backing up the backups. Robert Moore is buying more food and showing up the preps. And yes, I chuckled at you, Anna. I never feel silly for overreacting. I agree with that. I don't feel silly for overreacting because when I overreact, it's in a way that I won't regret, I suppose you could say. not one of those people to make panic purchases. Um, lately we've greatly increased our preparedness purchasing, and but all those things that we've been purchasing are things that we would want anyways, things that will benefit our lives anyways. When we buy more food, largely it's food that we're going to eat no matter what. My family goes through a lot of rice because we cook it, you can cook rice into meals of any ethnicity, if you will. There's American dishes, Asian dishes, Mexican dishes that use rice. So we use a lot of it. So we can buy as much rice as we want, knowing we'll eat it and just save money later because food always gets more expensive. Guns you can buy and know that they'll only get more expensive. And as I'm not even going to finish that sentence because you can't go overboard on buying guns. But as long as you do everything in the proper budget for what you have at the moment, if you're doing prepping right, you'll never regret overreacting or prepping harder. I do try not to be alarmist. I want to be able to. I don't like saying that things are going to happen because then when they don't, you lose credibility. And when I see a very viable threat, whenever I feel like there's something I need to tell you guys as a very serious threat, I want that to mean something. So that's why I don't like to say this is what's going to happen. I think that riots are just, you're going to see a riot in your street because it's very likely that most of us will not see a riot in our street unless there's a reason for it in somebody's mind. But I definitely feel like there's an increased baseline of concern and a corresponding increased baseline of preparedness that we need to assess. But I don't know what that means. I don't know what that's for. So we prepare for the things that we see and the general things that we can do to make ourselves more prepared. Hello, GT. Interesting, Backwoods, but that would mean that I want to buy Keystone. And no offense to Keystone drinkers, I sell a lot of Keystone, but I won't say that I would not drink. I would drink Keystone if it was. I won't say that I would not drink Keystone if it was the last drink available, because I probably would, but I wouldn't like it. Canned beef? Okay, canned beef. I'll store up canned beef before I'll store up Keystone. I think we might have lost each other here. That's good, Robert Moore. Yeah, it's always good to get a little more money in, and definitely always good to increase your preparedness. Keystone Chicken tonight to make some. Oh, okay. I did not know that brand name. Keystone. All right. This makes a lot more sense. I only know Keystone brand beer. So, yep. Cleared up. It's funny how different the brands can be from region to region. Yeah, no, I don't recognize it. It's all Campbell's and I don't know, a couple other national brands, and then, whatever store brand you're in. Oil storage, nice. What kind of oil? Like gasoline or actual like motor oil? Yeah, heavens, I've got a little bit of grain alcohol, just bottles of Everclear Oh, cooking oil. That makes a lot more sense. Although I've considered just getting like a drum of crude or a drum of kerosene or something, be pretty valuable. Actually, I'd probably go with like a big old barrel of anthracite coal, but beef rice. Nice. Yeah, just a quick stir fry or something like that is uh, so simple. And, it's honestly, it's amazing that more people don't eat just basic prep food because one of the simplest and quickest satisfying meals is just stir frying up some rice with some kind of meat and sauce. It takes a few minutes, and that's one of the best meals there is. I'm getting a very powerful urge for chicken fried rice right now. I know it's my own fault, but I got you guys talking about recipes. Yep, it's true, backwoods. There's nothing like a hearty meal to get people who are working hard. I haven't been in the field with the army, but I've worked in the field outside in the very cold and miserable conditions for long hours, and you definitely learn the value of meals that satisfy. One of my favorite camp out meals has always been the tinfoil dinner. Get a big old bunch of ground beef and like potatoes O'Brien and various other things, corn, vegetables, stuff like that. A bunch of ketchup, and you fry it all up, and then wrap it in multiple layers of tinfoil, freeze it, and then when you're going on like a 10-mile hike and then camp out, throw it in your backpack wrapped in towel. And about the time that you get to the campsite and get the fire going, it's thawed out. You throw it in the coals of the fire, and it cooks up into like a makeshift shepherd's pie kind of thing, and it is the best meal that you've ever had in the woods. And the best part is that it's already cooked, so if you are too lazy or too hungry to wait for the fire, you can just tear it open and eat it cold. And it's the second best meal you've ever had in the woods. That's a lie, Robert Moore. I can definitely smell water boiling. That's the smell of camping. Hey, Heavens Essentials. Don't knock Spam. It's like the Christmas meal of Japan, if I'm not mistaken. And isn't it like incredibly popular in Hawaii? Yeah, Robert Moore, you know what I was talking about. Yeah, not on propane or white gas. That's a very distinctive smell of a camp stove boiling water. But no, yeah, you generally can't smell boiling water when it's over something else. But I won't knock Spam for being concentrated protein product, but I would definitely suggest going for the low sodium kind because that's going to throw off your sodium to calorie and protein intake levels. Personally, when it comes to protein storage, I tend towards things like hemp protein and protein plant powders because those store really well, and you can use them to supplement other foods without worrying about everything that's in the spam, like the sodium and stuff. But arguably, the plant protein is much more available to you. So, yeah, I believe that, Anna. Yeah, I definitely agree backwoods that in a post event situation, you definitely want enough salt to offset, you'll probably have different needs in that situation, but a lot of prepping foods are far too high in sodium for what you want, for just like a baseline diet. You definitely need to be very conscious of it. Yeah, Heaven's Essentials. I eat a lot of hemp seeds. They're a great source of protein and fiber. Um, I eat smoothies almost every single day or every other day. And I use the whole hemp seeds, the cracked hemp seeds, and also the green hemp protein powder from Bob's Red Mill. Um, it's just the same amount as eating too much sodium now. Um, if you're not getting enough water, then it's going to dehydrate you. But it will cause you to want more water. But if you're not drinking enough of that water that you're asking for, then it's not a good situation. And then salt also drains you of not electrolytes, but it can have a net negative effect on your electrolyte levels because it's stripping your body of the, pretty sure it's potassium and various other things that you need to process out that salt. Um, you need salt to retain hydration, Anna. So all the water in the world won't help you if you have zero salt or electrolytes in your system. But past a pretty low level, it starts using water to get it out of your system. And that's what Backwoods is talking about, because when you are salt, when you have a high salt concentration, it triggers your thirst reflex, which causes you to drink enough water because naturally we tend towards trying not to require water. We tend to dehydrate ourselves naturally as just a reflex to try to conserve our water usage, I suppose you could say, which we don't need nowadays. So people tend to run dehydrated. So what he's saying is that survival foods have a little bit of salt to make you drink as much as you should be. The problem is when you are eating only foods that are high sodium, you overdo that balance. And if you're not drinking copious amounts of water to strip it out and then supplements to, replenish what you're losing to all that process, it becomes a net negative. And it'll do that, Heavens, because yeah, the more salt you have, salt bonds to water so well, so it'll make you water heavy. Yeah, tea does dehydrate. If you buy the bulk dried tea leaves, then they should store just fine with dehydrator, moisture absorbing packets in a sealed container like Mylar. That's interesting. Backwoods, just like an electrolyte powder, basically. Gatorade without all the sugar, I would imagine. Yeah, heavens, I'm pretty much just a coffee and water kind of guy, and then cider at night. Pineapple juice helps reduce water bloating, huh? I feel like I've heard that before, maybe in the context of I can't remember what it is that does it. We'll just say bromelain because I know that's the part of pineapple that breaks down proteins, because pineapple is the fruit that eats you back. I have heard that, Anna. Yeah. It's like a anti-inflammatory reaction or something like that. Well, to tell you the truth, I should probably wrap it up here pretty soon. I've got a somewhat early morning, got a lot to do tomorrow, but I may be trying to do this again tomorrow. No promises, but I wanted to make myself do this tonight to get back in the habit of it, but I also want to live stream during the day so that we can get some of our, East Coasters with a normal sleeping pattern in as well. Promise? No, no promises. But I do want to try to make it a little easier on myself to do this so it happens more often. Really trying to get back into the habit of making videos and talking to you guys, because it's definitely the time to be talking about this and be proactive about prepping and stuff, because things are not getting less needing of preparedness. Hello, I am vegan. Long-term storage of yeast for bread. Really, there's not too much besides getting the freeze-dried foil packets of yeast and then just rotating it out, which would require cooking with it quite a bit. If you're not willing to do that, then I would honestly, I don't have too much information off the top of my head besides looking at, I don't know if freeze drying allows the yeast to be alive or in a stasis kind of situation. Looks like Heaven's Essentials is saying freezer, so I imagine having the foil packed yeast in the freezer is probably a good option. So yeah, light and heat. So obviously you'd want to keep it in a nice, cool, dark place. It really depends on how long you're looking to keep it for. My understanding is that it stays shelf stable for a decent time, perhaps even past whatever expiration date it may have. But rotating is one of the best ways. That way you know that you at least have that, if you can store it for a year, 2 years, 5 years, have 5 years worth, use that much in 5 years, it's always fresh. Aside from that, I know that there are ways that you can cultivate wild yeast from the air, particularly in certain areas. So there are definitely ways that if you find yourself without yeast, I think that you can leave open a bowl of sugar and flour and cultivate yeast that way in some way. I know that somebody in our local prepping community has made a video about that. So I know it's something that can be found on YouTube. I imagine it's pretty common. So as always, one of the best options is to not only store preparedness items, but to know how you can provide for yourself should those things fail you someday. And then, of course, you can just keep a sourdough starter going at all times, which has become pretty common during COVID. My family has one going. where you have your yeast there. It's a live colony at all times. And if you stay on top of it, there's no reason why you should ever run out of a live culture of yeast to make bread with. Oh, missed you, creative redundancy. Have a good night. If I missed you all ready, then I'll see you next time. Yeah, I wasn't sure backwards. I imagined it was around a year or two. And, I mean, they're bacteria, so I imagine that even if most of them are dead, you can at least hopefully get a culture going off of them again, even if it's just a few of them. Well, I think I'll probably wrap it up. It's been a good hour here, so if there's any questions, comments, or opinions that you guys would like to share before we head out of here, love to hear it. Love to hear what your thoughts are on preparedness, where you think people should be preparing, what you would tell a new person about where they should be preparing or what they should be thinking about with what's coming up. Otherwise, definitely stay tuned for another chat here soon. I'm going to definitely work on putting more videos out. It's been pretty busy at work. I'll be taking over the store where I work here soon as a general manager. So there's just been a lot of catch up work and a lot of long days, but definitely been feeling the pressure to get back in the habit here and start putting out some content. So, oh, thank you, Heavens. Yeah, it's good. It's definitely a new mark on the resume. It's something I haven't quite done before, but a lot of work and definitely mentally distracting. And it's just hard nowadays to know just what to say some days. There's so much going on and so much uncertainty that sometimes it's hard to say anything besides the same old in a video. But I'm going to be doing my best to at least do this kind of thing and talk to you guys a lot more often, and hopefully be putting out a lot more videos here soon. So thank you everybody for dropping in. It's been great talking to you. I always love having a good chat with you guys. Got a great audience, good group of friends, and thank you, Heavens. But yeah, I get a lot of comments on this shirt, and the thing is, it's all true. Everything I know I learned from Sesame Street. But I definitely always appreciate my audience. You guys are always down to earth and have great advice for each other and for myself. I learned more from you guys than you ever learned from me, that's for sure. But appreciate you guys for dropping in. I hope you're all doing well out there. As always, if there's anything that you think I can do to help you, definitely contact me. ltaprepping@gmail.com is the email. And you guys are all welcome to drop me a line anyways, because you just never know in these uncertain times if it might be nice to have someone to be in contact with in different parts of the country. So welcome to email me there if you want. Like to stay in touch with people, but appreciate you guys being here, being in the chat. I hope you're all doing well and have a good night, and I'll see you soon. Okay, everybody, stay safe.